computer. Great. I'm joined today by Audrey Harris, who's a member of West Cork Toastmasters and indeed a past president of that club. Anyone who's heard Audrey's icebreaker speech will have been moved by the story of how she first encountered Toastmasters and the effect it had on her. Audrey, you're very welcome. Thanks for agreeing to do this.
Thank you, Alan.
Would you just tell us how you got into Toastmasters and the effect it had on you?
I will indeed. How it all began. Well, we won't go back to the very beginning because that's too mundane for all you Toastmasters. But I was just a housewife, and my family were now reared and they were doing their own thing. And it was time for me to do something for myself. So one morning in the kitchen, I was doing my usual chores and the radio program came on. And speaking on that radio was a man called Pat Walsh. And Pat was talking about Toastmasters. I had never heard of it. And Pat was from Blarney Toastmasters, and he was encouraging people to join. Now, it was a big step because the only meetings I had ever been at was the flower arranging meetings and the demonstration meetings, and I sat on a seat and then we had tea afterwards. But of course, when I got to Toastmasters, that wasn't what it was like at all. Now, the first thing I must say is that I will never forget the warm welcome I got at Blarney Toastmasters the first night I arrived there. It was just unbelievable and I felt really at home. And from there on, of course, I went through all the fears and the terrors that I would never stand up and speak and I would never do anything like that. And I realized that this wasn't a sitting down lecture like I was used to. This was something that I get involved in. So the years went on and I did my icebreaker and I did my other bits and pieces, the evaluator and so on. And gradually I got courage. I don't remember doing any leadership roles at that stage, as in officially in a manual. But unbeknownst to me, I was learning leadership all the time. Well, I got courage and I got a lot of, I got to places where I would never have got in my courage and the courage to speak and the courage to stand up before an audience. And one day, back in my kitchen, again, a few years later, when I had achieved a little bit of knowledge from Toastmasters, I spotted an ad in the paper one morning. Now, my daughter had just come home from Spain, and her Spanish was quite good. She had a little bit of French, and this ad said, training for tour guides, a continental language essential. And do you know what she said to me, Alan? She turned around to me and she said, go for it yourself, Mum. Me? My French? I could just make a stab at a menu when I was on holidays. I did learn some in school, but it certainly wasn't French tour guiding. So anyway, they told me that, you know, I would have to dress up, and they manufactured is the word, a CV for me. And they dressed me up in my daughter's graduation suit and I toddled off for the interview. Well, the French didn't go very well. I had a piece rehearsed and then I fell on my face across the table, and lo and behold, I was asked a second piece. And of course, that was the end of it. So I came down the stairs from the interview and I said, oh, well, that was fun while it lasted. And 2 days later, I got a phone call to say I had been accepted for the course to train as a tour guide. Now, but for Toastmasters, I would never, ever have taken the step. And I really looked at it at that stage as just having a pleasant winter with these training groups and going around from hotels in the wintertime and learning about, traveling on coaches and so on and so forth with the rest of the group. But as soon as the course was finished and I got my badge for All Ireland tour guide, national tour guide, and then the phone started to ring. And all of a sudden, I had found myself a new career. And it wasn't to do with the training course, because I'd never have gone to it without the courage from Toastmasters. Absolutely superb. And I recommend anybody who feels they can't do it. That's the important thing. You can, and you never know where your strengths are going to be. You haven't found them yet. So keep going and do try to work a little bit more on your leadership, I would suggest. And who knows, you might become a tour guide when the COVID-19 is all ended and we can enjoy your company on the road. I had a fantastic 15 years of tour guiding. Then I retired, and I retired to West Cork. And I was looking for something to take on. I didn't feel like going to the flower club, and I didn't feel like I did for a bit, and I didn't feel like doing, anything sporting or anything like that. And all of a sudden, one morning, I was walking through Clonakilty, and I noticed a very small sign in a window: Toastmasters meeting. And it was in a hotel in Clonakilty. And there were very few of us turned up that morning. And it was John Keating who had instilled the idea. I was hooked once again, absolutely hooked. This is exactly what I wanted. So I have been with West Cork Toastmasters from the beginning. Most of the people who joined that morning are no longer in the club, because there were a lot of them were young people who've moved on for other careers and so on. And Alun, you came in shortly after that, not long at all. And so did several others who are still there today. But it has been another journey for me with Toastmasters, and I really, really do enjoy it so much.
That's fantastic. When did you first get involved then in Blarney?
I got involved in Blarney, it must have been the mid to late 80s, I would say, somewhere around that. And I spent several years. I can't even tell you how long I was with them, but I know it went into the 90s. And then my new career as a tour guide took over, literally.
So you're a Toastmaster of 30 plus years standing.
Well, I had a gap in the middle.
Yes, but even so, you've got, and has anything profoundly changed since you first joined?
Yes. You mean Blarney Club versus West Cork?
Or just the ethos of Toastmasters? Or is it still the same?
The ethos is the same. I would think it has become, with Pathways especially, and I've just joined Pathways myself, having finished all the rest of it, thank you. And this is a new learning curve again for me. And I did think about resigning and retiring, but no, Toastmasters dragged me back in again, and I'm now on Pathways. But yes, I'm finding it a little bit bewildering at the moment, but I'm assured by some other older members in other clubs that it'll be perfect and it'll be very similar to the old ways.
I think anything new is always a challenge, but we all feel challenged no matter what we were doing, whether it was competent communicator, competent leader, or whatever. It's all a bit bewildering, because you're not only are you taking on something new, you're taking it on with lots of eyes watching you, but lots of support given, of course.
I think one person who influenced me very much in the start of, and was very encouraging and very knowledgeable, was the man called Paul Murphy in Blarney Club.
Yes, of course.
And I know many Toastmasters will have probably met him, and sadly he has passed on now. But of course there is an award in the division for the Paul Murphy the best Toastmaster, is it, of the year?
I think it's
Something like that.
Toastmaster of the Year in Division A.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and it's so lovely to have him honoured. I've no designs to take the trophy myself at some stage. I'm kind of sitting back a little bit now after my year as president and enjoying it all. And I'm taking on pathways, of course.
Absolutely.
That's major.
Yeah, and you've stuck with it through the challenges of of COVID, of course, where we're all isolated, but you're like me. One of the highlights of my week is meeting my chums online. It's great.
Yes, and little did I think the day I joined Blarney Toastmasters that I'd be doing Zoom and online, and that I would become so familiar with technology, because that has been something in the last few months that I have mastered, more or less, a few faults and things yet, but I'm getting there. And I would encourage any of the people, especially the older people who feel they can't do this online, I would encourage them to try, because as somebody who was mentoring me the other day about it said, you know it all, don't be so afraid of it. And that's exactly where I was. So maybe other people know it too, and they shouldn't be so afraid of it, and just go for it.
Audrey, I think that's a great place to stop with that message. Thanks ever so much for your time. I really, it's great. It's always good to talk to you, but especially good to be able to record this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan. I enjoyed that very much. Right.
Great. Good.